Hi, my name is Gavin Anderson. I'm 17 years old. Today is Sunday, the 14th of January, and I'm speaking with my dad, Jeff Anderson. The time is 10:38, and we are in Salt Lake City, Utah. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself as a child? Like, what were you like?
That's an interesting question. So I was the sixth of seven children.
Jeez.
Yep. And so my parents, the first five kids, were very well planned, meaning they were 2 years apart, and they were part of. What? What are you laughing at?
What are you trying to say?
Oh, I was not planned.
Oh,
Yeah, I came. Did you not know this?
No.
Oh yeah, I was 4 years later. So
Wow.
their first five kids are all 2 years apart, and then there's a 4 year gap, and
Between you
then
and Brad?
between Stacy and I,
Oh, wow.
and then I show up, and then, and I was a pleasant surprise, and then just kidding, and then 6 years later, Tiffany showed up.
So she was even more of an accident.
Oh boy, yeah, I was an accident, small A. She was an accident, large A, capital A. But yeah, and while my mom was pregnant with her, she was mean, and you can understand why. She was not expecting this child, and
So you just...
so one of the few things I kind of remember. So I was 6 when she was born, and I don't think people remember a ton about their early years, but
probably anyone.
I kind of remember that my mom was really mean.
Like how so? What was she
Well,
doing?
she was just upset and cranky, and because of the pregnancy. But so my father was older when he got married. My dad was, I think, 34, 35 when he got married, which was back in the day old, because he'd already fought in World War II, graduated, went to Stanford, and finished up at Stanford before he got married. So, but I had a great childhood. I remember that I was very imaginative and made up all these games. There were 9 of us living in a house that was 1,300 square feet. So
it's not a very big house.
that's half of our upstairs. That's half of this floor.
That's not... Yeah, I could see it.
9 of us.
That's a...
Yes. And there were 3 bedrooms.
So you're double bunking.
Yeah. So I was living with my brother, my oldest brother, in the basement in a room that was really more of a serious, this, like, I'm not trying to look for sympathy, but it was like a food storage room.
Was this the house over
by East? Yep, 1312 Bryan Avenue.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a teeny little place. I remember checking that.
Yeah, but the yard was big, and it had on the east side, it had this we called it the jungle, because there was like 3 or 4 big trees, and all sorts of kind of weeds and junk, but it was just a fun place to explore as a kid and make up.
How long were you in that house?
Well, so from the time I was born till I was 6, and then we moved up to
the
Olympus
place.
Cove.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I had a great childhood. How much detail do you want?
What were some of your things to do up until like your teenage years? Let's just go explore that. Until you were about 12.
Yeah, so I, when we moved up to the Cove, there were, on this one street, just to kind of help put things into perspective, there were 6 boys almost my exact age. We were born within a month of each other. And all the families had big families up there. And so at night, you'd play night games every night until
Like what kind of stuff would you guys do?
We'd play Still the Flag, and would play Red Rover, and would play hide and seek, and we'd play all these games just till... And it was cool because you'd have young kids and medium-aged kids and even older kids would all play.
So is it just kind of like your main group of guys, or were you always with like your group and then other people as well?
Pretty much I would hang with my group of guys through the day, and then at night for night games, there would be like 40 or 50 kids.
That's awesome.
Off of almost 1.5 street. Seriously, it was nuts.
That's crazy.
Well, so our family had 7 children. Our next door neighbor, the Websters, had 6 children. Everyone back then had 4 to 7, 8 children.
Because like the baby boomer generation.
Yeah, it was. Well, so we were the children of the original baby boomers.
Yeah.
So yeah, but anyway, well, everyone had a lot of kids, so it was a great. I grew up in probably as perfect environment as any kid could grow up.
That's great. So
Yeah.
That was.
And then so you said till the time I was about 12.
Yeah. So I know there's a lot of girl stuff in there. Do you want to talk about that or?
Well, so getting to the age of 12, is that like in 6th grade or so?
Yeah, that's like kind of up until you're about to go to either middle school.
Yeah, so, well, I think you had asked earlier about a first kiss, right?
I did.
So,
That's one of our questions, yeah. So
might as well get into that now, right?
Yeah.
So,
At a young age.
yeah, when my first kiss was when I was 6 in kindergarten. When was yours?
Like 6th grade.
Oh wow. Okay, so this
That's
was
still pretty early, dude.
yeah. So we were movers and shakers back then. So this was yeah, kindergarten, and the girl was Jill Rice. I'll never forget her.
It's a classy lady.
Yeah, you know Rice Stadium. It was Bob Rice's daughter, Jill. So I swung for the fences.
Didn't she pee on you at Lagoon later on?
Yeah, she did.
Oh, that's a good stuff.
But yeah, so first kiss, Jill, never forget it. And then yeah, all through school, it was weird. Kids had girlfriends a lot, so that was my first like kind of peck. And then in 4th grade, I like kissed a girl that
like,
was
kiss make out.
kind of make out. Yeah,
That's fun.
yeah, it was crazy. But so this is the funny. I'll tell you the Lagoon story. Like I could talk my 45 minutes on just this one story.
All right, maybe we do.
I probably won't do that. But back in my day, everyone was like not poor, but no one was really super rich except for the Rice family and the Eccles family. And my other best friend was Spence Eccles, and so they're two pretty rich families. Mm-hmm. So we a group of us went out to Lagoon, and this is probably like in around 5th grade or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
In the summertime, and I was riding this spinny ride with Jill, the one that like.
Oh, the one where it has like 5 little carts that are
Yes.
spinning in circles in a big circle.
Right. So at one point in time, you're on a small circle, and then as the centrifuge moves outward, you're on a big circle, and then there's supposed to just be 2 people per box car, but there were 4 of us. And we convinced that we were all little, right? This is like 5th grade. We were little kids. And so we convinced the guy that the 4 of us would be fine. And so he put the 4 of us in this car, and it started to spin. And we started to all laugh because it just throws you to the side, right?
Just pushes you all the way.
We were all sitting on each other's laps pretty much. And Jill was sitting on mine at this point. And she was laughing so hard, as we all were, but she couldn't control it. And so she was laughing so hard, she peed her pants for a good 2 minutes, probably. Like, she didn't just lightly pee her pants, she really peed her pants. Like, full bladder.
Just all over.
Yes.
Dude, just
pee everywhere.
Oh,
So by
boy.
the time the ride got finished, her pants were fully like filled with pee, and so were my pants full with Jill's pee. And it was just really a funny thing, but we didn't want to give up our day at Lagoon, so she went to a payphone. I don't know if you know what a payphone is.
Yeah, I do.
But we found a payphone, and she called her maid, and her maid like drove like to my parents' house, picked up a new pair of pants, and brought
That's
Jill,
like an hour drive.
Yes. It brought Jill a new pair of pants and myself a new pair of pants, and we stayed at Lagoon through the night. We didn't go on that ride again, though.
Yeah, I don't have to close it or something because there's pee all over.
No,
it.
I think they get peed on quite a bit. So they cleaned it up a little bit, and most of it was still on us and our pants. But anyway, that was kind of fun.
All right, let's go to a new question.
All right.
Can you tell me about one of the most difficult moments in your life?
Yeah, so, and I probably haven't talked to you much about this, but so it was in 1995, December 23rd. I'll never forget it. just 2 months after I got married to your mom, your Grandpa Larry, who I love, like, more than anybody, really. Like, I love, not more than anybody, but as an in-law, he was someone that I really loved. Wanted to go, we were living in San Francisco, and he wanted to go hunting. We were back in Salt Lake for Christmas, hunt pheasants, and I'm not really into hunting at all. It's not my thing.
Yeah,
I don't have anything against people who hunt, but it's just not anything I won't like to do. So we went hunting for pheasants, and we were with a group of people who all could shoot pretty well. We went to shoot clays before. Have you done that?
Yeah, I've done that with like scouts and
right. And so everybody was hitting their clays pretty much, except for me. I'd miss almost every one of them.
You hadn't shot.
I wasn't a good shot. No.
Yeah.
And then when we went to hunt for the pheasants, when we actually went for the birds, we had dogs that were really good bird dogs, and the dog was on the scent of a bird right in front of me. The bird flushed. I shot, hit it in the wing, so it didn't kill it, but it brought him down.
Yeah.
And then I had to kill the bird, which was wringing its neck. Have you ever wrung a bird's neck?
No.
It's something you don't ever want to do.
What is it?
You grab its head and you spin it like this, and it breaks the bird's neck. And so it's a painless way for the bird to die.
Jeez.
But I did that, and this was in the first 10 minutes of the hunt, and I didn't shoot my gun the rest of the day.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, because it's not my thing. And then, but to make a very long story short, near the end of the day, one of the guys, you hunt in a line, so you do not shoot one another. And one of the guys in our group missed a bird that was right in between us that flushed up, and he was excited to get a bird because he was the best shot of our group, but he hadn't hit a bird yet that day. So he got a little over anxious, and he shot twice. The first shot missed the bird but hit me in the face, and then the second shot hit the bird. So I had 45 pellets hit me in the face from a shotgun.
I'm surprised you came out of that one.
So am I. But so we had to walk out of this area. We were still about 1.5 miles away from our cars. So we had to walk out, and my head was just bleeding profusely. And as we got up to the road, they stopped a girl who was driving a Camaro type car to see if she could take me back to our car. And when she saw how bad I looked, she threw up.
Oh my gosh.
And so I knew that I knew something. I couldn't see out of one of my eyes. I knew something was wrong, and I could feel blood just coming out of your head. Bleeds quite a bit more so than the rest of your body.
Noticed that.
So again, there, to make a long story short, are we talking until it gets to there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got 32 minutes left.
But so what eventually happened is one of the pellets came through my eye near the corner, and it severed the optic nerve from my left eye.
Yeah.
So I had, over the next 5 months, I had 7 full knock you out ophthalmic surgeries. They were trying to see if they could remedy anything in the eye, and then once they realized they couldn't, they had to then take out a component of your eye called the vitreous humor, which is tied back to the retina. And so for a period of about 4.5 months, I was in and out of surgery. At one point in time, I had a nitrogen bubble shot through my eye with an 8-gauge needle, which is a huge needle. And then if I sat upright for more than 35 minutes over about a 6-week span, the nitrogen bubble would have exploded my cornea and exploded my eyeball. So I had to sleep in this thing that looked like a guillotine. I actually had to stay in it 24/7.
Jeez.
For about 5 weeks. So I couldn't look up. I had to keep my head down.
Sounds like a living hell.
It was. And I just married your mom 2 months earlier.
Yeah.
So it was a tough way to start a new marriage. Plus we were living in San Francisco.
And you were in Utah for your surgeries, right?
I did 5 of them in San Francisco, 2 of them here.
Oh, okay.
So I had some there and some here.
Oh, okay.
But that was really a tough time. But I'll tell you one thing, and I don't want this to sound like it's like I never felt any malice, or I never felt any disdain, or I I wasn't angry with the guy that shot me.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a simple accident. So
it just kind of shows a lot about your character.
Well, on that one thing, I don't know if it does with everything else, but in that one area, I think that in life we have certain gifts in a sense, and
yeah,
I think for me, one gift that I've also seen in other parts of my life was an ability to forgive quickly.
I've noticed that as long as I've known you.
So that was a very difficult time in my life.
All right, new question. Can you tell me about one or two people who have been the biggest influences on your life?
Yeah, that one's pretty easy. So I would say that there's two men in my life who both I would consider to be like father figures.
Yeah.
So the first was my dad. He was never easy on us as kids.
What do you mean by that?
He knew that we could do more and do better. Even if what we were producing was good, it wasn't good enough.
So he's always pushing you to be better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So one example you and I talked about, I didn't take high school as serious as I should have. I still had like a 3.4, 3.5.
Yeah. So you were getting
reasonably
decent.
Good grades, but I wasn't applying myself to a level that he thought I could or should.
Yeah.
So he told me, he said, you shouldn't go to college. It will just be a waste. You're not going to take it serious. Why waste that money? Just go become a salesman. So that kind of got me upset. And so I wanted to see why. Yeah. So I wanted to show him that I could do good things and be serious. And so I finished college in 3 years.
With the bachelor's or?
Yeah, with the bachelor's. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. So I just kind of zipped through it. But to make, again, a long story short there, my father was probably the biggest influence on my life. Sometimes he wasn't always going about it in a way that was the greatest or that I liked, but he definitely gave me a great example. He was a great hard worker. Mm-hmm. He fought in World War II and just really showed me the value of work. And was just a great man. He finished at Utah State. He was the president of the student body at Utah State.
Really?
Yep. And then
that's impressive.
Yeah, and then he went on to Stanford Graduate Business School. And then came home and got married to my mom. And they had 5 planned children, and then two that weren't so planned. And then he eventually was the president and the vice chairman of the board of ZCMI, a department store that doesn't exist in Utah anymore.
Yeah.
So that was number one. Number two was a man by the name of Fred Wetzel. And
I miss Fred.
Yep, I do too. Fred sadly passed a couple of years ago. Way too young, 72, I think.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember how?
So they were complications due to a failed back surgery.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So the last 4 years of his life were just miserable. So, mm-hmm. But Fred also, I think, had 6 or 7 kids.
Yeah.
And I was kind of his 8th. And so when you and your brother were young, we bought a really nice house over by Willow Creek Country Club. It was more house than when we could afford at the time, but it was kind of one of these. It was a big, nice home.
Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah. And I'm the kind of guy who probably shouldn't ever be able to own a house because I need help changing a light bulb. And Fred could see this. And Fred, on the other hand, was very handy and good with everything.
Yeah, he was a really intricate, well-learned guy around
Yep.
the house.
And a servant, just a really great guy. So he taught me a ton. Like my father was a bit of a workaholic, so I didn't really spend a lot of time with him.
Yeah.
In those formative years. I would have liked it, but he just wasn't around, which is fine. Nothing against him. Whereas Fred filled that void in a big way for me in my life. Fred was very much a great mentor for me.
Mm-hmm.
and taught me how to do stuff, but even more so how to live. The man was the most
What do you mean
selfless.
by like how to live?
So it was funny. We had these so I moved out of that house after 4 or 5 years, I think, is when we got divorced. And then I bought a new big house that I didn't know how to do anything. And so Fred would come over here probably every time I would ask him, which turned out to be like a couple times every month or every 6 weeks. And he and I would work on a project in the house for like 2 or 3 hours. And then I'd always take him to lunch to pay him back.
Where would you guys go?
We would always go to Cafe Rio, or probably most of the time to Cafe Rio. Or I would go to this Chinese food place over by his house called Great Wall. You know where the store is?
Yeah.
It's just right next to that.
Oh, okay.
We've actually been there. And a couple of other places. But the thing that was funny is that the food was inconsequential. What was important about that time is we would talk about, life and his kids and my kids. And Fred was a little bit older, but he was just a great friend.
Yeah, I remember Fred. So you talked about your dad and Fred. What about Brad, your older brother?
Yeah, so that's a good one too. As I said, my dad was kind of into his career when I was a kid and in those kind of formative years. So, and as I said, there were 7 kids in my family.
Yeah.
The next closest boy to me was my brother Brad.
How much older was he?
6 years older.
Okay.
Yeah, because Stacy's 4. Yeah, so Brad's 6 years older than myself. And it was interesting. I think Brad could see that there was a bit of a void with like a father figure for me. And so he became that. And so I guess I kind of have 3 dads. One is my actual physical dad. But really the 2 who taught me the most and helped me grow up were my brother Brad and then this guy Fred Wetzel. But Brad was great because he would allow me. He was a big man on campus, student body officer, all that kind of stuff. Had all these cute girls, but and whenever his friends would come by, and his friend actually had this car, a Trans Am. I don't know. Yeah, it was like the car.
Yeah.
And this guy, his name was Stanley, and Brad would take me out with them, and they'd actually let me drive it.
How old were you? Like
12 or 11. So I would steer. I'd sit on his lap, and I'd steer while he worked the gas.
Yeah, that's funny.
Because I couldn't touch the gas or the brake. But so Brad, my older brother Brad, was definitely a big influence on my life.
Yeah, he's a great guy. All right. So if you could go back and talk to your teenage self, what would you tell you?
Oh, how much time do we have?
22 minutes.
Well, that's an ironic question that you're asking right now because you and I were just talking about that a short time ago. So I would say, and I'd write this stuff down if I were you.
Good thing I've got a recording.
I know. You might want to get this thing recorded on video, audio, microfiche, which I don't think you know what that is.
What?
Microfiche. It's how things were recorded back in my day. Okay, so back to your original question, no tangents. I would be very open to building strong, diverse networks. Let me say that again. I would be very open to building strong and diverse networks.
Do you mean among people, among your relationship to adults, friends,
Every
girls?
single one. I'll tell you my favorite all-time quote, and you should try to live this one. It's by Maya Angelou, a great American that died like 5 or 6 years ago. She said, people will forget the things that you did. People will forget the things that you said. People will never forget the way you made them feel.
Yeah, we've talked about that quote a lot.
Yep. But really what it's saying is that the more you look at people with a common curiosity to find out what makes them who they are and to find out what's important to them, to find out what are their life lessons, to find out what makes them tick and what contribution they've made. I mean, just be interested in people. Don't in your life be looking to become interesting as a person as much as you want to be interested in people.
Because people will kind of give you more respect, or...
Here's the thing. When you're talking to someone, you already know what you know about yourself.
Yeah.
You're never going to learn that much talking to someone about yourself. But by talking to them, asking questions of them, being interested sincerely in them, you'll be amazed at the things that you can learn, and you're going to learn a whole lot more listening than you are going to learn from talking about yourself.
Okay.
So network with people and really build. There's another statement that says your net worth only will be equivalent to your network.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, because you're kind of only what other people know you for, know about you.
So, for instance, in my life, I've had like 5 or 6 jobs, I guess, big jobs since I've been out of college. And there's only one of them I interviewed for, and it was the first job I got right out of college. Every other job
you've received because of your reputation?
Because of my network.
Wow.
And reputation, right. So
That's
it's
impressive.
been,
Well, it seems like you've lived by it since your teenage years, at least.
Yeah. So networking is something I'd say that's super important for someone if I could go back.
Okay.
Also, when I was young, I had a girlfriend for about 3 years, off and on, but it was more on than off, like almost my entire high school.
Name?
Holly Eng, E-N-G-H. Her grandfather was Hank the Petunia King. And anyone who
What's a petunia?
It's a flower. And so anyone who lived in Utah around the 70s would know Hank the Petunia King. But anyway, the point I'm making is that I was too involved with this one girl, and I didn't go out and meet a lot of other girls and get to know other girls. That's one strong regret that I have, is that I wish I had been more open to meeting a bunch of other people and girls, in this case, potentially dating other girls as opposed to just this one girl. So that would be another thing. Another thing too would be to not take any day for granted.
What makes you bring that one up?
Because there's a statement by Buddha who says the mistake we make is that we think we have time. And you never know when life is going to throw a major curveball at you. Every day is a gift. It's not a guarantee. And I think any day that you waste, you sort of waste a day or a part of your eternity.
Okay.
So
yeah, it's true.
I think that we need to stop a little and slow down and count our blessings each day, and even keep like a gratitude journal.
Okay, yeah.
Where you write down things each day that you're grateful for, right? So that would be one of the key things that I would say. Another thing, and I don't want to be on this one too long, but I'd really take better care of my body. I think that I did a good job. Like, I was pretty active physically, but knowing what we know now, I would be much more aware of my diet.
Yeah.
And also things like getting appropriate amount of rest. Mm-hmm. Because I know that kids like to kind of burn the candle at both ends. So those are just some things that I would try to do.
All right, let's go to the next question. So, how would you describe yourself to someone who has never met you?
So some of the things that I like a great deal are reading books. So
what kind of books?
The books I like I do not like fiction at all. I think it's intriguing, but I don't waste my time with it, because every time I pick up a book of fiction, the story is usually compelling and it gets me really excited, and all I will do is read that book, and so I will shun other responsibilities to read the book.
So you don't like fiction. You like fiction, but you won't read it because you almost get like addicted to it.
Yes.
Okay.
And I know my own weaknesses. Do you want to hear a funny story?
Sure.
So I took you to this really swanky hotel down in St. George for UEA.
The Econo Loge.
The Econo Loge, yes.
It wasn't swanky. It was the
Econo Loge. Some people call it the Econo Lodge, but for us sophisticated French speakers, it was the Econo Loge.
Yeah, we'll not get into that hotel.
Well, the irony is that so it was UEA, and so every hotel was booked. So we were paying like $200 a night for the Econo Loge.
Yeah, it was
not that nice.
It was not a nice hotel.
But hey, economics are what they are. Supply and demand hurt us on that trip. But I was reading a book by Michael Crichton called Micro.
Oh yeah, that's a good book.
So I'd put you to sleep, like I got you down to bed like at around
9:30, 10.
Yeah, whatever. And then and I'd sleep for about an hour to make sure you were asleep, and then I'd go take this book and sit on the toilet in the bathroom with the light on because it's the only place I could turn the light on. And I had my clothes on, just to be clear, and I'd sit and read that book till 2 and 3 in the morning. And so
you'd compromise your sleep for this book.
Yeah. But that's how I was with really any book of fiction. There were these books by David Dalbacci that are just insanely well written, mystery, and so anytime I read one of these books,
you just get hooked.
Yeah, so I don't read them.
Okay, so those are the books you don't like.
So the books I love are books that are tied towards improving yourself, books that are tied toward business and management and leadership.
So self-help, like
pretty much.
What are some of your favorites?
So I probably read close 350 books at least. I just cleaned my books over the Christmas break. It took me 2 days.
Jeez.
And I had to and then I've got 12 Banker boxes of books in the garage.
See those.
Yeah, and then so those are just the ones that didn't make the grade to fill our 5 bookshelves upstairs. So of all the books that I read in that vein, I've got 5 that are on my desk and that I read parts of probably every day. So the first one is called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. The next one is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. The third is The Happiness Advantage by Sean Achor, who's a Harvard professor. Mm-hmm. The fourth is a book called Success Principles by Jack Canfield, another Harvard alum. And then not that means anything, but
smart for something.
Pretty much. And then the last one is a book called The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino.
It's a great one.
Yeah.
So what's it about these books that they're self-help books, but have you gotten through a time with them, or?
So the very first book I ever read of that nature was a book called See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar.
Okay.
And my mom introduced me to that when I was probably your age, 17, 18 years old. Mm-hmm. And it's also up in the bookshelf. It's not one of the 5, but it was sort of my first book that led me into this
genre.
Yes, nice use of that word, by the way. So they just helped me expand a vision of where I am today and help me to see what I ultimately want to be into the future and where I can be. Mm-hmm. And they give me many, so you get a degree of motivation about what you can become. And more importantly, especially specifically the Success Principles probably gives you more practical tools and exercises to get yourself to where you ultimately want to be.
Okay. Makes sense.
7 Habits was good that way too.
Yeah. That's a good book. So you're a reader. Those are the types of books you like to read. So, what are some of your other qualities or traits?
Okay, so I'm a reader, and then also that's tied to that, sort of a close cousin of deep reading or reading in depth, is I love words. Absolutely obsessed by words.
Notice that. You always say something that I don't know how to know its meaning, and I feel like an idiot.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story about that. When I was a kid, I would ask my parents sometimes what a word meant, and they would never tell me that they would use.
The wang-a-dangus.
Oh, not that one.
Let's not get into that.
That's not in a dictionary. So what they did is they'd say, well, we're not going to tell you, go look it up. And so I learned how to look up every word in the dictionary.
Yeah, because they bought you a dictionary for your
Christmas present. When I was 7 years old, I only got 2 presents that year, and felt like I was a poor child. I got a jumbo deck of playing cards, so
not that average size.
Not the small size, but a jumbo size of playing cards, about twice the size of a normal deck, and I got a dictionary. That was it for my whole Christmas, and so
it's just sad.
It's a little bit sad, but there were 7 kids, as I said. It was funny, after every Christmas with 7 kids, all the kids would get together and we'd vote on who is the rich man and who is the poor man. Because let's be honest, sometimes kids get a bike or
roller skates.
Yeah, or whatever,
Xbox.
Something of a bigger, Xbox didn't exist.
Oh, yeah.
So, but they all 7, and every year people would debate who was the poor child.
Yeah.
That year there was no debate. They all pretty much acquiesced to the fact that I was the poor child.
You were the one with the jumbo deck of playing cards without a dictionary.
And a dictionary. But I tell you what, I loved that dictionary, and from that time on, I would highlight a word every time I'd look it up, and I'd put the date by it. And regrettably, when I went on a mission, that dictionary got lost somewhere.
Yeah, it's a
so I don't
shame.
have it anymore, which is really sad because I would give a lot of money to have it back.
So you're a reader, you're into words.
I love golf.
Yeah.
Golf is
Golf runs you.
pretty much. I'd rather play golf than breathe.
You can't golf and not breathe.
I know, right? So, but
Compromise.
I would take golf over breathing if I could not breathe.
Oh, okay.
But I started playing golf when I was 11, and I'm absolutely obsessed by the sport.
You're pretty good too.
Reasonably good.
Mm.
I've had 3 hole-in-ones.
That's impressive.
But more than anything, it's just it's a release for me. It's like I like to play golf with people, but I really like just playing golf in the late evening, kind of by myself. That's my favorite thing
Do you
to do.
prefer it because you're alone or because it's
Just because it's solitude for me. It's kind of religious.
your happy place?
It's my happy place. It's just where I can be out in nature and experiencing great weather, and it just makes me happy.
All right, let's go to a new question. We've done that one. Can you tell me about one of your happiest moments in life?
Not to sound cliche, but I can remember very well the dates and the exact moments when both you and your brother were born.
Yeah.
Those were some of the happiest moments.
Let's go something outside of that.
All right. Then what else is there? Happiest moments. You gotta help me out here.
Okay, think about one of your greatest accomplishments. Think about the first girl you fell in love with. Think about, I don't know. We can go with the cliche answer. We can try to be original in our last 7 minutes. Or we can just skip it and go
to
on.
a different question.
All right. Tell me about some of the most important lessons you've learned in life.
So
Just one, because I know you've got books written about.
So
things.
one of the most important lessons I've learned in life, and that's going to be from this past year, and this won't sound terribly profound necessarily, but it is for me, and it's to go into every situation with a plan. So I think that when we there's big parts of our lives when we kind of mentally vegetate almost. Think about some days in school. Some days you're really active and wanting to learn. Other days you're just kind of going through the motions. I've found that when I just go through the motions and sort of call it in, if you will, I don't get that much out of a situation. If I go into a scenario and I have a plan, meaning I proactively thought about where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do, and how I'm going to interact, what I'm going to say, I get so much more out of it. So if I'm I went to a dinner at the governor's mansion over Christmas, and I went into it knowing that there would be a ton of people I didn't know, and some that I specifically wanted to meet. And
would you say that's your environment or out of your environment?
That's out of my environment.
So you're more introverted?
I'm very much introverted. I can be extroverted, but if you gave me the option of going to a party with 50 great people or 150 great people, or staying home and reading a book, 99% of the time I'd stay home and read a book.
Yeah. But you got out of your comfort zone, so props to you.
Yeah, so it was good. But yeah, so one of the biggest lessons would be go into every situation and have a plan. Those 3 simple words, have a plan.
All right. Got 5 minutes. I think we'll get another question. How would you like to be remembered?
So that's an interesting question. I read one time in this book by Stephen Covey, he said, think about your funeral. And if at your funeral you had 3 different people speak about you, one is someone from your personal life, someone from your professional life, and then someone from your family, what would you want them to say? And it's a pretty interesting question. I think that if I were to look at how I'd want to be remembered, it would be that that I was a good dad, of all things. So
obviously,
yeah, that's probably the thing that I'm most focused on in my life. So I would want more than anything for my kids to be able to look at when I'm gone and draw lessons from what I did, not so much what I said, but how I lived my life.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, well, that's what I would say.
Okay. This will be a fun one. Can you tell me about the dumbest thing you ever did in your life?
Jeez, how much time do we have?
4 minutes and 10 seconds.
Oh, that's unfortunate. There are so many things, it's not even laughable.
I know.
But I've got one funny story that it's really the dumbest thing my sister did. So Stacy was 16 and I was 12.
Yeah.
And I was not very tall. And she had just gotten her driver's license. And she thought she'd be a cool big sister and let me drive home from the McDonald's on 33rd South.
Yeah. So just from 33rd to 45th, pretty much.
Right. Well, it really is about 10 miles when you consider up to my parents' home.
Oh, yeah, true.
And within there, probably 6 traffic lights.
Yeah.
And 2 of them major 4-way stops, major, like intersections.
Yeah.
And one where if I turned the wrong way, I could go the opposite way on a freeway, which going the wrong way on a freeway wouldn't be very good.
Yeah.
Which I almost did, but yep. I was 12.
Yeah. She
was in the passenger seat and I'm in the driver's seat. I can barely I'm sitting on one foot to see over the dash and then using my tiptoes to hit the gas and the brake.
Jeez.
I mean, I was
you were on your own completely.
Driving the car by myself.
Wow. All right.
A Ford Granada. The car doesn't even exist anymore. So I did great until I got to my house. So went the whole way, all through stoplights, stop signs, everything. Got to my parents' home, and I was pulling into the driveway, and my little sister freaked out. She was 6 years old, standing on the sidewalk, could see I was driving. She started screaming at the top of her lungs. It messed up. I'm not blaming her.
Yeah.
But
obviously that's going to throw you off.
It threw me off. That just threw me off. And I needed to take a sharp right turn into the driveway. I missed the turn by a little bit. So I knew I needed to hit the brake, put the car in reverse and try it again. But by accident, instead of slamming on the brake, I slammed on the gas. And this car went from 0 to 40, in no time. I took out my parents' entire front yard. I pulled
Did you fall into the huge ditch?
3 aspen trees. I knocked them out. A pine tree.
Goodness.
And then luckily the car got high centered on a big rock about 8 to 12 inches before going down the ditch.
Oh my goodness.
So the car was teetering like this at about a 40-degree angle. And we got out, and it was so funny. Our neighbors came and ultimately pulled the car out. Jim Webster, this guy who's the head of thoracic surgery at the University of Utah, had a big wench on his old Chevy Blazer.
Uh-huh.
And they all pulled it out. The whole neighborhood was there, probably 20, 30 people.
Oh my goodness.
And I was downstairs watching a show called The Love Boat.
See, you just ditched the car.
Yes, and then my sister had 2 boyfriends come, and they got in a fight.
Because they didn't know?
No, they wanted to both help, but they were upset that they were both there. Yeah, they didn't know each other existed. And I was down watching the Love Boat. And it was just a funny...
Did she get in trouble for this?
She got in trouble. But my parents, this is the best part, and I'll finish with this. My parents were at Education Week down in Provo.
Yeah. So they had no idea it even happened.
They had no idea it happened, but they came home like around 6 in the morning to make it in time for church.
Yeah.
And my dad came down and started shaking me to wake me up, and he's like, Jeff, someone vandalized the front yard. And I'm like, they did? What happened? So I didn't tell my dad until we got to church. And this guy who pulled the car out came up to me and said, hey, Mario, how's it going? Because he was talking about Mario Andretti, who was a big car